Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, my name is Ratna Andika. On behalf of my colleague, Dr. Fajri and Ibu Nurani Hartini, we are very delighted to be here to present our research in this very outstanding conference, 20th AsiaTEFL, 68th TEFLIN, and then 5th in ELTA 2022. So it is our honor to share to you our research entitled The Implementations of Problem-Based Learning to Promote EFL Preserves Teachers' Critical Intercultural Awareness and Action Research. Well, we are going to start from the problems that we need to take actions. So we found that the situations of our students sometimes do not fit into their own culture, and which is we call as a culture shock. And my students are trapped in the wrong stereotypes of culture, and maybe they believe in their only believe on their own prejudice without real understandings. And then we also found that the students are worried to face such intercultural problems or intercultural encounters, even though there are many chances that they can they can have such intercultural encounters, but they still feel worried in having or facing the intercultural problems. And the third point is, according to the previous studies, we found in many language education contexts that English language teachers mostly are non-native English speaking teachers, which means that it will be varied cultural backgrounds that must affect cultural awareness, because their cultural backgrounds, the teachers' cultural backgrounds, of course, will affect to their the way they approach the cultural knowledge to their students. And if we talk about teaching languages, so it cannot be separated from the teaching its culture themselves. Okay, and talking about critical cultural awareness, so I took the definitions from the Michael Byram Sims, one of uh, the most famous intercultural researchers in language education. So Byram's defines critical cultural awareness as the ability to evaluate critically and on the basis of explicit criteria, perspectives, practice, and products in our own and other cultures and countries. So based on these definitions, we do agree that it is very crucial in promoting our students' critical cultural awareness rather than promoting their knowledge or uh, their skills. Yeah, but it's critical cultural awareness are related to their behavior or their attitudes, and it's we think as the most difficult parts of intercultural competence that we need to develop on our students. And talking about cultural awareness in language educations, according to Karen Rissager's 2006, there are two important aspects that cannot be separated from cultural awareness here. So if we would like to be critical in understanding the cultures or become critical cultural awareness, so there are two aspects of psychology and socio-cultural aspects that cannot be separated. Psychology aspect here related to the people reflect or the way they perceive the result of their observations of their own life. So before the students try to observe or understand other cultures, so their psychological aspect need to bring them to understand their own self first. And then another aspect is a socio-cultural. Here's the analysis of the learning about language and culture and their relationships. So talking about the cultural awareness, so it involves both psychology and socio-cultural aspects. And why it is using problem-based learning? As we know that there are many advantages of using problem-based learning in multidisciplinary area, including in language teachings. And here studies found that PBL has revealed the significance that is to promote students' autonomous learning, lifelong learning, problem solving, practical thinking, innovation, collaborations, and communication. So, talking about the implementations of problem-based learning, actually there are various uh, models of PBL, but obviously they must be started with the problems that develop or trigger the students to activate their existing knowledge, their prior knowledge, and then they try to identify uh, what kinds of knowledge they need to solve that problems, and they do such an inquiry by discussing with their friends in the groups, and then they try to critically analyze, and then after that they uh, get their findings, and then they reflect and compare with other students how their solutions toward the problems, and then they share to their friends, and finally come to the assessment. So here we address two research questions based on the backgrounds and also the PBL characteristics here. So the first one is we would like to know how do preservist teachers experience the PBL approach to promote critical intercultural awareness in the action research. And then the second one is how do they perceive PBL with regard to critical intercultural awareness. And come to the methodology here, as it is mentioned in our title that we do such a action research. So for data collection here, we were gather the data from the whole process of PBL. And as the characteristic of PBL itself, it started by the triggering questions or some things that triggering problems. Yeah. So we here provide prompts as the characteristic of PBL. The first prompt is related to their understanding of the scenario. So we give them such a scenario problems in which it is talking about the workplace situations where there is a miscommunication or misunderstandings between the different cultures in the workplace situations. And then the second prompt is related to their understandings of miscommunicated point in the scenario, whether they understand why it is happened, why miscommunication, why what makes miscommunications happen at the time. And then the third prompt is related to their critical awareness of the effective communication in different cultural dimensions. And then for the participant here, we took the data from the 40% of teachers undergraduate students, and then they are considered as the multilingual because they don't speak not only Indonesian language as their national language, but also English and their traditional language such as Sundanese or Javanese. And then they are around 20 to 23rds, and they are dominant by female. And for the research procedure here, we use action research proposed by the Anna Byrne. So here the common stages of the action research, we started with the planning. We planned our lesson plan regarding the strategy that we would like to uh, conduct here in solving the problems. And then acting here means that the teaching learning process itself, and then observing. I taught my students and then two of my colleagues observing, do the observations, and then we do such an evaluation by doing such a reflective activity. We consider which aspect that we need to improve, with aspect that we consider as an effective way. So we do in a weekly spiral process, and for this research, we do for 2 cycles of this procedure. And we comes to the findings. So for the findings here, refer to the first research questions. We took the parameters from Byram's 1997 that he provide 3 parameters of intercultural critical intercultural awareness. The first parameter is identifying and interpreting explicit or implicit value in intercultural communication. So we would like to analyze whether our students can identify or interpret explicit or implicit value in the intercultural communications. And then the second one is making an evaluative analysis of the intercultural encounters. So we would like to we will see whether they can evaluate the analysis of the intercultural encounters. And then the third one is interacting and mediating an intercultural exchange by explicit criteria, negotiating where necessary a degree of acceptance of them by drawing upon one's knowledge, skills, and attitude. So here the first analysis of the data. So here we found that they are able to identify and interpret explicit or implicit value in intercultural communications. Once they watch the video contain the miscommunication or misunderstanding between two cultures here, so they start to identify their communication, types of communication, whether it is verbal or non-verbal, and then they also identify their cultural dimensions in relation to high context, low context, and then whether it is Eastern or Western, and then individualistic or collectivistic. So here they identify based on what they see in the scenario. And then they also try to interpret. So we found that they are able to interpret the problems here. Uh, in here, we see that from this prompt, yeah, we give them these prompts. Why do people in different culture misunderstand each other? So they are able to interpret here by saying like this. People tend to view things from their culture, so they are often misunderstanding. For example, in Indonesia, Madura usually have high intonation when they talk to Bandung people who are used to using Sundanese with soft intonation. The Maduranese will sounds angry and rude when speaking, even though it was a normal thing for them. Speaking softly was considered usual for them. So here we can see that they try to not only involve their socio-cultural aspect, but also their psychological aspect here. They try to reflect to their own culture. Here they said Maduranese and then Bandus. They try to compare between two cultures, which is only in their own cultures. Yeah, it is of course different with what they see in the video. And in the left side here, we also found that they can mention the factors that can make uh, teaching cultures difficult. So it's mean that they are able to identify the problems and then why it is happen. And then the second parameter about critical intercultural awareness is related to the ability to evaluate the intercultural encounters. So here, based on the data, we found that the students found that teaching culture is hard due to several reasons. The first, they mentioned that it's because of the habits of the people who are different, and then they have to get used to the culture or custom of other regions. And then they assume that not everyone can accept the new culture that comes in because they love the culture of their respective regions. And then the third one is the influence of teachers' cultural backgrounds. So we do think that it's quite interesting since they can not only identify the problems why it has happened, but they can evaluate why it has happened, and then what factors that can makes the problems arise in intercultural encounters. And then the third parameter is related to the interacting and mediating in intercultural exchange by explicit criteria, negotiating where necessary a degree of acceptance of them by drawing upon one's knowledge, skills, and attitude. So at the end of the activity here, we found that the learners try to propose some solution to avoid misunderstanding or miscommunication here. So we assume that they are able to negotiate or uh, sum up, yeah, they can sum up what should they do uh, based on their knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So here we can see that they sum up they try to summarize that the first, we are not allowed to jump to conclusions or make a judgment. We are not allowed to give everyone, we should give everyone time to speak. And then we need to prioritize transparent communication. We need to recognize difference in culture, activities, needs, and habits. And then we need to understand various culture in both visible and invisible forms. So here we assume that there are in the end of the uh, uh, in the end of the stages, yeah, from the PBL process here, they finally can sum up the new points to avoid intercultural misunderstanding or miscommunication. And next, come to the second findings. So here in the second findings, uh, since we do PBL strategy. So we try to highlight the importance points in PBL strategies to find out how its strategy can help to promote their critical cultural awareness. So we can see from the table here that in the PBL strategies here, we relate it to the action research. So in action research, they are for cycles, planning, preparations and implementation, and then evaluation. So in the planning here, uh, it in line with the first stages of PBL, in which the students need to understand the issue. The students need to understand the problem first, what really happened actually. So here's the planning, the issues is scenario understanding. And to trigger them, we give them such prompts. So we can see here the importance of prompts in guide them to understand the scenario here. So instruction designs of using PBL, question to ponder. For example, what do you think about workplace talk? Yeah, so they will think about workplace talk, and then they observe the video, and they try to understand the scenario here. And then the issue also related to the learner's critical awareness of effective communication in different cultural dimensions here. So to know about the learner's critical awareness of the effective communication in different cultural dimensions, we also give them three prompts here related to the why do people in different culture misunderstand each other, why culture is hard to be taught, why would communicating with different cultures be more difficult than with the same culture. So it's very important to give them such a guidance first before uh, they can do such an inquiry activity in problem-based learning. And then after they investigate the problems, and then they try to find the solutions. So finally, we come to the conclusion here. After 2 cycles of action research, the study revealed that the interconnectedness of the stages in the action research successfully promote learners' critical cultural awareness. Okay, so here are the references. Thank you very much for your attentions. Questions and suggestions are welcome. Thank you. See you sometimes. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.